Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Art Coaching Club podcast. I am your host, Haley White. I am a business coach for artists, owner of the Scouted Studio, online art gallery, and artist myself. I am so excited because something I've been focusing on extensively lately is Pinterest Predicts. So I went into this last year. A lot of artists ask me, what do you think the trends are going to be for next year? What do we think about how this is going to affect our art, decor, all of that good stuff? So I'll kick this off by saying, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, last Thursday, I posted a Substack that breaks down in detail all of the trends that I think are important for you as an artist. It'll cover some other stuff that we didn't get into today as well, like, kind of overarching trends based on all the little trends that we get into and just how you should think about this as an artist. But today I wanted to come at you, a little bit longer form as a podcast and break down, what is Pinterest Predicts, what it can mean for you, and how to use trends in your favor without losing who you are and your style and your voice as an artist, how you can use it to potentially sell and market more of your work, but not totally evolve what you're doing. So let's get into it. What is Pinterest Predicts? Pinterest Predicts comes out every year in December, I believe, and it is Pinterest's outline of what they think the trends will be for the following year. So I did post something about this back in 2025. Basically, what Pinterest Predicts is they look at all of their data, they look at what people are searching for, and I give a lot of details into facts about what numbers and what all that means later, but they get into what people are searching for, therefore what are the trends going to be in 2026 or in the following year. So example, last year, I think they said something about like fisherman core or something like that, basically, that hinted at like this kind of like sardine tin fish culture that was actually huge in the summer of 2025. So they're pretty spot on. I believe the stat I read on their website, it was, I believe 88%, it's either 80 or 88% of their trends come true. So I think that's a really high stat, and it's because they have the data to back it up. People want it, therefore it's likely to become a trend if it isn't already. So every year Pinterest Predict comes out and creatives collectively ask the same question: what do we do with this information? I do not want you to think about Pinterest Predicts and say, okay, one of the themes, for example, is kind of lace and bringing back a lot of lace. Does that mean I think you should just cover everything in lace or you should start painting lace? No, that is not how you should read a trend report. I don't look at Pinterest Predicts for instructions. I don't look at it for exact aesthetics to copy. And I definitely don't look at it as a to-do list for my studio and for my subject matter. Instead, I look at it more for signals. So it shows what signals people are craving in their homes, what's starting to feel tired. Like we'll see a lot of this year, we're moving away from kind of like that beige culture and more color maximalist in some ways. So I think this is really important because it shows where taste is shifting. And it's interesting because, and what I'll get into in the Substack in a little bit today is, today we're going to talk about all the trends individually and how you can think about them. Now, as a whole, how can we look at all of these trends together and what do they mean for you? What is the overall landscape, moving towards? Because a lot of these trends seem in conflict with one another, but some of them actually work together. So again, every trend might not work for you. And for that reason, I don't break down every single trend. Some of them I just don't think are as relevant, or I just didn't see a direct correlation. Doesn't mean they wouldn't be relevant for you. I recommend you Google Pinterest Predicts 2026 and read this for yourself or have it up as you listen to this podcast. So much good stuff in there. And I also recommend looking at the visuals on Pinterest themselves. Like if you think, like I gave the example, lace core or whatever they call it, lacy ear, they have some word for it, but like lace is making a comeback. Type in the exact phrase they're using and what's being searched and see what comes up, because those visuals are going to have more of they're going to probably click in your mind, because we're all, I feel like, visual learners as artists, more than me just telling you what I think it means. So I just want to say all this because when it comes to art and decor, trends aren't rules. They are shifts in taste that many people are kind of buying into. So the plan for today is to not break down every single trend from the 2026 Pinterest Predicts report. Instead, I want to talk through what stood out to me in particular based on my taste and my kind of art and decor lens, because obviously I am very in the art world in a lot of different ways as a gallery owner and artist myself and business coach that works with hundreds of artists across styles. But also I've worked with and for a lot of interior designers. So I want to bring in that decor lens as well. And then I just love fashion. So some of that might come in too. So we're going to talk about not what to replicate, but, more of where are things heading? How can you tap into that? So how I actually think about trends. Let's start here. So before we get into the specific trends, which if you're bored of me talking, you can skip ahead to those, but I do think this is important. I think we need to zoom out for a second. Trends are not telling you what to make. Trends are telling you who your collector is becoming. So what you need to think about is your ideal customer and how is this trend shaping what they want in the new year. So example, I have a pretty clear idea of who my ideal customer is when I was creating my different collections of work. So when I see that equestrian fall was coming up, and that's something I think that was kind of a fashion trend, that's something I thought my audience might be interested in. I thought, okay, well, maybe like tortoiseshell browns, coffee stained paper is something that not directly, it's not paintings of horses, but it's kind of this like Ralph Lauren aesthetic that we're seeing, because we saw that Ralph Lauren Little Women Christmas trends as well come up kind of across the board. So it's just understanding what's going on in the market and can we make choices, whether that be color palettes or framing choices or even just how we're styling, to lean into these types of things. So it's just understanding who is your collector becoming, what are they buying, what are they interested in, what is getting fed to them on their algorithm because it's a trend. I mean, I always think of home decor trends like shag rugs were in at a time and probably aren't as much in now, but that was a style at a point, and that was something that was a trend, that was a direction that collectors were heading at a certain point. And so this is all just to say that these trends reflect emotional needs, lifestyle shifts, cultural shifts, longing for certain experiences or emotions. So when you get tripped up and you instead pause and ask yourself, what kind of person is drawn to this? And how my artwork already fit into the world of somebody that's interested in this subject, and can I make little shifts that kind of tap into this trend? That distinction is everything. So now let's get into the actual trends that stood out to me. So I want to start with a really fun one, and I'll just kind of preface it. The way that Pinterest breaks this down is they give every trend a name, and there's probably like 20 trends they highlight. Let's say there's 20. I'm highlighting, maybe half, maybe a little more than half of those today. They give them a name, and then they explain them, and then they show some photos, and they also show certain numbers of searches that are up. So for example, this one they've deemed glamourati. They explain what that means. They explain what it means, and then they say, to back this up, 80s the search term 80s luxury is up by 225%, and they list some other things as well. So I'm going to break down every single one that I find relevant. So I'll share the name, what I think it means for art and trends, and then certain search terms that are up by certain percentages to hopefully give you more of kind of a well-rounded view. And obviously I love data to back things up. So the first one is glamourati, which I don't really know what that means, but basically it's coming from this idea that searches around things like 80s luxury are up. So the actual search 80s luxury is up 225%. So the way I thought about this is not subtle glamour. It is bold. It is unapologetic. It's indulgent. So it's that like burgundy and browns and greens and just a complete departure from the restrained, quiet neutrals, restrained minimalism, the white, the beige, the black. It's totally different. So where I think what this means for artwork is richer surfaces. So again, I'm coming back to my After Midnight collection. I'm thinking coffee stained paper, or, when I say richer surfaces, I'm thinking like velvet. I'm thinking like a bourbon bar. I'm thinking that kind of feel. I'm thinking confidence in scale. What is more glamorous than like a huge piece with lots of texture and depth? And then really thinking about art that anchors a room instead of kind of politely disappears. So that comes back to that departure from minimalism and quiet neutrals. I think we saw this style for a while where it was like very white, black, and like maybe huge pieces, but they kind of just blended into the wall. These are like, let's stand out. This is art that's the main character. And so I think if you've seen my recent After Midnight collection, which was those figures in tortoiseshell frames on coffee stained paper, it in my mind kind of feels like that energy. And I'm actually doing more of those and framing them, some similarly, some a little bit different, but I am leaning into this like richer, warmer color palette when it comes to frames, when it comes to mattes. I think saturated color, depth, drama, like even the way I shot that collection is everything that this is. And obviously this just came out. I did not know this when I was shooting the After Midnight collection, but I'm trying to make visual comparisons to make this as clear for you as possible and how I think it's going to come out in the art world. So basically, Glamourati is trying to be tasteful, but not in a small way. Let's think drama. So that's the first one. The second trend I am seeing is totally different, and it is poet core. Again, that's what they name it. So, like poetry, romance, language, writing, slowness, all of that good stuff. So if a trend has ever screamed Substack, it is this one. And I think we are seeing such a rise in Substack. It is longer form content. I mean, I obviously love it. Who knows what will happen with Substack next year, but I think the fact that people are searching more things related to poetry and writing, I think it's obviously a direct relation that people are going to be enjoying longer form content like Substack, which we're already seeing the trends point that way. But also we want more depth, thoughtful expression, not just visuals, but emotions as well. So what I think this means for artists is, again, it's not just adding words to your work or incorporating poetry. If that's not your thing, like that's not what I'm saying. But it's allowing introspection and storytelling and the depth and the emotion behind the work, that vulnerability back in. So art that really feels lived with, that is a story, that the artist is a part of the story, and art that feels like someone kind of speaking to you. Romance, slowness, writing, and I think there's so many ways you guys are creative that could come into your artwork. Again, I do recommend looking up the Pinterest predicts and seeing the visuals for Poet Core, because what came up was just so visually stimulating for me that I think it'll really take this to the next level for you. The next one I want to get into is Neo Deco. So a couple of stats. Brass aesthetics is up 35%. Antique bar carts are up 100%. I think those are two really interesting ones because I think that just gave me a really interesting view of what Neo Deco kind of means. And I think it suggests a renewed interest in geometry, in symmetry, in framing being a really important part of the work. So this is less, it's more about structure and shine, but kind of filtered through this contemporary, interesting lens. This one I have a hard time kind of putting this into words. It is sort of Art Deco, but it's like putting a new spin on it. So I really think looking this one up and seeing the visuals, you should just do that, because I feel like I can't put this into words the way I need to. But what I think is it shows that presentation matters, edges, borders, structure. It contributes to how work is going to be perceived and valued. So I'm really thinking like an unlacquered brass versus like shiny, slick stainless steel is how I feel this one in like my bones. Maybe that's because I also just put some like unlacquered brass finished things in my house and in my kitchen. But again, it's like this departure from minimalism in like a new warm way. So all these do in some ways kind of work off of each other. So that's one. The next, y'all, I just love this one. And this was a trend fashion wise. So I'm not surprised at all that this is coming up, and it's brooched is how they call it. Brooch. I don't know how to say that. That's embarrassing, but whatever. You know what I'm saying. Brooch aesthetic is up 110%. Maximalist accessories is up 105%. What do I think this means? Adornment is back. And importantly, it's no longer apologizing for itself. Let's be crazy. Let's be ornamental. Let's have the jewels, the glitz, the glam. In art and decor, this really opens the door to embellishment, maybe some dimensional elements, layered materials, shine, sparkle, intentional framing with some of these things in mind. I think this is a permission slip to stop stripping things down to this minimalistic aesthetic. Throw on the jewelry, throw on the glitz, the glam, the embellishment. I love that word. And it doesn't have to be so serious. So really, really love this. The next one I really love is Funhaus, Funhaus. This one surprised a lot of people. Rightfully so. It is very circus chic, but let me break it down. It is not about painting clowns. So first, let me give you some of the data. Striped ceilings, up 40%. Circus nursery, up 50%. Circus art, up 35%. Vintage circus aesthetic, up 70%. Maybe you're like, yikes, circus, clowns, scary. No, y'all, if you look this up online, you'll see the aesthetic. You look it up in my Substack, you'll see the visuals, and you'll be like, ah, yes. It is playful. It's nostalgic. It is graphic. It is colorful. So how I see this playing out with artists is more about pattern and visual joy and collections that feel energetic and expressive and like whimsical and nostalgic in a lot of ways. So, bringing in the stripes, like I've seen a lot of striped mats or artists that are using really colorful stripes and patterns on the side of their canvases. I mean, I'm thinking round top tent, like that kind of vibe. It's like this elevated, chic, striped look. And I think we're seeing it already on Reels and TikToks where we're seeing things like people painting their ceilings red or painting stripes in their entryway. Just a lot of this DIY, I'm doing what I want kind of feel. And then it's like this beautiful, really outcome. So this one's like an interesting, I feel like I had to explain it because I'm like, no, don't start painting clowns. But again, once you see the visuals, I think it'll make a lot of sense. And I think there's a lot artists can do with this. Okay, the next one I mentioned earlier, laced up is what they call it. So one just quick stat, lace makeup, which like I don't even really know what that would be, up 120%. So softness is re-entering the conversation. This trend is about texture, it's about delicacy, it's about femininity without toughening itself up to be taken seriously. It's like this domesticity and beauty, art being beautiful for beauty's sake, but those fine lines, layered surfaces, being subtle, just soft, all of that, this romanticism is coming back and I love it. I love lace. My wedding dress was like all lace, just absolutely love it. Very Chloe coded, if you know that brand. Lace is back. So what I think this means for artists, again, I don't think you need to be painting lace or necessarily using lace if that's not your thing. It's just this, it's a certain feel. It's femininity. It's things being delicate and romantic, textured. And then the last one I want to talk about today, and again, there's more in the Substack and there's more that you might find really interesting on the Pinterest Predict site as well. Pen pals. So this is my favorite. First, let's give some context. Snail mail gifts are up 110% as a search on Pinterest. Cute stamps up 105%. Handwritten letters up 45%. So what I think this means is in a hyper digital AI, social media, let's do all the things, let's do them faster, better, as efficiently as possible world, people are craving slowness. They're craving the human hand, the human touch. They're craving proof that there's a human on the other side. And we're going to see this from a tech standpoint too as well. Like on Instagram, we're already seeing things that are shown and proven to be not AI, like proven to be made by a human, like art, doing really well. People love that right now. They're craving it. So for artists, I think this shows up in like the obvious ways. We are seeing a huge rise in mail print clubs, things like that. I'm already seeing a lot of that in my Reels and my TikTok, all over there. But I also think this can come down to always using handwritten notes. Your packaging, can it feel, again, I think my reading girls kind of quietly intersect and like sort of speak to the person that would be into this trend, because I had them wrapped in craft paper with like a red embroidery ribbon. Sometimes I embroider back into them. The reading girls come with one of those like library cards that says who checked out a book. That's what I write my notes on. It's just, it has that kind of pen pal handwritten feel. And it's not even the style of them, I think, fit into this. But I really think like personal work that is slower and shows the artist's personality, the artist's hand, is what this is getting at. So again, I think my reading girls kind of touch on this vibe. I'm not literally illustrating pen pals, and I don't think you should either. You don't necessarily have to do some kind of like snail mail print club, things like that. It's how do you tap into the person who loves this trend? Why are people loving this trend? It's the mindset, and how can you tap into it? So that's why I like to give the reading girl example is I feel like a reading girl speaks to somebody who loves this trend. The needlepoint also kind of touch on like lace. They kind of touch on like nostalgia things in certain ways, but Again, this is the kind of collector who values intimacy, slowness, story. How can your work speak to them? So I hope you found all of these really helpful. Again, I've said this 1,000 times. There's more in my Substack, but what is the bigger takeaway? I think the biggest takeaway is we can talk about trends all day long. You can look at fashion trends, Pinterest predicts trends all across the board, what's coming on TikTok, Instagram. What I think is important, what I think is going to be successful to you, growing your brand as an artist, is trends don't tell you what to make. They tell you how people want to feel. They tell you what people are interested in and what people are going to be interested in from a product theme standpoint, but what they're really telling you is, why do people want to feel this way? They're giving you a product example like pen pals, but the deeper emotion behind it is people want the human touch. People want slowness. People crave humanity. It's interesting. So your job is, as an artist, is not to chase trends, copy them verbatim. It's to understand them and decide, where do you naturally align? Where can what you already are doing personally and professionally in your work align with some of these, one of these, two of these trends? And so often the answer isn't changing your work at all. It's changing how you frame it, how you present it, and or how you talk about it. So I hope this is helpful. If you want the full breakdown of Pinterest predicts with screenshots, deeper analysis, more trends, how these trends specifically translate into art and decor and all that good stuff, make sure you read last Thursday's Substack. You can head to my link in bio and I'll link it in the show notes as well. I walk through each trend that I think is important in more detail. I talk about how to use this information strategically without losing your voice or chasing what doesn't belong to you. And I will link all of this in the show notes. But as always, if this episode sparked something for you, please send it to another artist or friend who's wondering what direction to take next. And with all of that, I will be back next week. I still want to post because I think this stuff is important and low-key. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this solo episode. I have some really great artist interviews lined up for the new year, but I also think you guys really enjoy these solo episodes. So thank you again for tuning in, and I will be back next week with another one.